All right, I believe it's 6 o'clock. And hello, everyone. I would like to call our meeting to order for the February the 7th of 2022 regular town board meeting. I would like for us to do a roll call, and I'd like to apologize to Ms. Pearson for not doing so during the pre-meeting. But everyone was on that pre-meeting, so we will do roll call now. Commissioner Boone.
Here.
Commissioner Kidwell. Commissioner Kidwell. Thank you. I do need to hear you. Thank you. Commissioner Kovacs.
Here.
Commissioner Munger.
Present.
Commissioner Partee.
Present.
Commissioner Phillips.
Here.
Thank you all for joining us this evening. Since I've already called our meeting to order, we'll now take a moment and pause for our moment of silence. Thank you all. And if you would please join me as we stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Thank you all. We will now move on into our mayor and commissioner reports. I will start. I did participate in a very short MTC meeting last week. Wasn't a lot of movement there, but a chair and vice chair were established. I'm just continuing to work with our town mayors north of us, south of us, as we continue to work through the issues of transit. And as I get more, I will bring it to you. I also want to share with you that EDC report this evening. So Huntersville has a total of 28 projects right now in the pipeline. We did host a company last week, and they came for a project visit and looked at various sites. And according to our ADC, our project activity right now is very strong. I'm forwarding out information, the monthly update, et cetera. As I get it, I'm sharing it with you. And if you have any other questions around the projects and what's happening with the EDC, we can set up a time to meet with Mr. McDaniels from the EDC and just have some conversations around it. That is all I have currently for a report. So if we can go ahead and move through our commissioner reports, I'm going to turn this over to Commissioner Boone.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Briefly, in the last 2 weeks, I had my first meeting with the North Carolina Power Agency, and that was on the 25th of January. They elected new officers. They gave us a legislative update, and basically they reported that the 4 nuclear power plants that Electric Cities is involved in are up and working. From the Huntersville Fire Department, they had their controlled burn. Well, thank you, Kim. I was going to wait for that for last, but I wanted to update the board on the signage that we talked about several meetings ago at the corner of Central and Holbrooks. These are the new stop signs that are up, and they are working. I went by there and checked them out. I saw 23 trucks roll by there, and each one of them stopped. Further update from North Carolina NCDOT that there will be some signage on these roads once the North Carolina Department of Transportation puts this on their work order. Thank you, Kim. Got some exciting news. One of the best programs in Huntersville is Huntersville 101. And the registration is open right now, and it's for the class of 2022. And if you want to get involved in the town, find out how the town functions, this is your class. It starts on the 2nd of March. There are 2 sessions, one in the morning that starts at 9 to 11 a.m. and there's one in the evening from 6 to 8:30. This class is open to Huntersville residents, business owners, and you have to be 18 years of age. Space is limited. So if you want to participate in either one of these classes, it's a first come, first served basis. And please sign up today. And there's no cost to this class. Something brand new in Huntersville is coming on April 2nd. Huntington Green, the neighborhood, is holding a festival for services. This is from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. and it's located at the Lake Haven Community Church. This event will provide information and services to the community that the county and the town of Huntersville provide. Like I said, this is the first, and Madam Mayor, that is my report.
Thank you, Commissioner Boone. Would you mind repeating the date of that event?
The Huntington Green Neighborhood Festival Service is April 2nd.
April 2nd. I'm
And
glad I
Kim-
asked again.
Kim Strickland is involved in that with the people at Caterpillar Ministries.
Wonderful. Thank you so very much for that report. Commissioner Kidwell.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. CRTPO met at the end of the last month. We have new leadership. Ron Pappas, the mayor of Waxhaw, is our new chair of CRTPO. Commissioner Lisa Quells is our new vice chair. It was a pretty brief meeting. It was held virtually, and it was done within an hour. So there's not much to report other than that. The next agenda will be sent out shortly. I'll share that with the board as that will prove to be quite large. Also, been working with Kim Strickland, our POI, our PIO, on Veterans Affairs, and we've locked down an individual from the office. We've locked down a meeting space for that person. Now we're just trying to lock down a day. And from all looks at it, it's going to be a full solid day. We're going to share that information with the town of Cornelius, the town of Davidson, and also I've been working with some other veteran groups that I'll be sharing that information with so we can get that to as many veterans as possible so we can help them out. And that's all I have for reports, Madam Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Kidwell. It's exciting to hear about Veterans Affairs being able to be relaunched and coming back full force and partnering with our neighbors as well. So well done. Look forward to hearing what that day is going to be. Commissioner Kovacs.
I wanted to echo what Commissioner Boone said about Huntersville 101 and encourage residents to sign up. I absolutely loved 101, and there were so many situations where I had aha moments, and it also helped fuel my passion for wanting to become a commissioner. So I highly encourage people to sign up for that if you're able. I have my report from the Lake Norman Chamber. They will be hosting the WINS Business Networking event tomorrow morning at 8:30 a.m. at Brick Row in Cornelius. The speaker will be Willetta Jones, who's speaking about From Grief to Gratitude, Sadness to Love. And the meeting is really intended for female small business owners, managers, employees, but anyone can attend. And the Chamber Young Professionals will be meeting tomorrow at 6:30 p.m. at 11 Lakes in Cornelius. And the speaker is Bill Russell. Wednesday, the Chamber will celebrate the grand opening of Resilience Massage with a Ribbon Cutting and Networking event at 10:30 a.m. That'll be at 15905 Brookway Drive, Suite 4106 in Huntersville. Thursday, February 18th from 8:30 to 9:30 is the Chamber's Focus Friday. So they ask you to join the virtual meeting to hear from the town of Cornelius, Huntersville, and Davidson mayors on new developments, infrastructure improvements, and plans for the town. And you can get those credentials from emailing the Chamber. And I have a report from the Huntersville Chamber. Tuesday morning at 7:30 is the Networking Works Zoom meeting. 2 Thursdays ago, the Huntersville Chamber had a meeting with Jack Simino at the Arts and Cultural Center, and there is a posted video of that on the Chamber's YouTube channel for you to view. And the February meeting will be held at Stop Restoration at 5 p.m. on the 15th. So they're just asking you to be respectful of masks and social distancing. And just thinking in the future, they are planning a health fair for June 11th and are thankful to be working with Burkeville Village as the host for that health fair. And that's all for me.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Kovacs. Commissioner Munger?
Thank you, Mayor. The Huntersville Ordinance Advisory Board did not meet this month. The Public Arts Commission will meet on Wednesday, February 9th, to discuss Sculptour 2023 and recommendations on the Trailhead sculpture. On January 26th, I attended the groundbreaking ceremony at Burkeville Village for the new Jewel Box shops, which will be built in the center area of the main street running through Burkeville Village. And on January 27th, I was able to attend the Building Our Infrastructure virtual town hall presented by Congresswoman Alma Adams, which highlighted a number of projects occurring in her district, which currently does include all of Huntersville. This Wednesday, I will have the opportunity to tour the Lake Norman Elementary School and learn more about one of our local charter schools. And finally, as always, if you have an opportunity to give, please consider supporting our nonprofits such as Angels and Sparrows, Caterpillar Ministries, Bags of Hope, Hope House, and Ada Jenkins. And that's all I have, Mayor.
Thank you, Commissioner Munger. Commissioner Partee?
Thank you, Mayor Bales. I just want to say good evening to all the town staff and residents who are viewing on social media. As you are may aware, February is Black History Month, and I just want to recognize a Black American inventor who gave me the opportunity to write many violation tickets and summonses back in my patrol days as a Nassau County police officer, and Chief Hall will like this. Garrett Morgan is the inventor who patented the first traffic signal light in the U.S. Morgan was an automobile owner who witnessed a crash between a car and a buggy. This event supposedly convinced the inventor to create the 3-position signal stoplight. On November 20th, 1923, Morgan received his patent. Garrett Morgan was born on March 4th, 1877 in Paris, Kentucky, and died July 27th, 1963 in Cleveland, Ohio. That's my contribution to the day's Black History Month. Also, for those residents, be aware that the town of Huntersville Black History Month celebration events will be held at the Mecklenburg County David B. Waymer Recreation Center every Monday this month through the month of February at 2 p.m. And I just want to recognize and thank Miss Betty Caldwell for her presentation today, this afternoon, and I look forward to hearing her again at this meeting. Now, the last month, the Huntersville Gateway Trail and Bikeways Commission met virtually on January 19th, and nominations of officers were conducted, and I want to congratulate Diane McLean as chair and Tim Sanborn as vice chair. As part of my monthly report, I also want to bring awareness to gun safety. And I do that because an accidental discharge can cause serious physical injury and death. Huntersville PD has free child safety locks. And if persons or organizations need a lock, they can send me an email at dparty@huntersville.org. Children are curious. Let's be child safe. Finally, I just go to a nonprofit named Cool Kids Clubhouse. Cool Kids Clubhouse mission is to devote and improving the quality of life of pediatric cancer patients. Please check their website and donate. And that is my report.
Thank you, Commissioner Partee. Commissioner Phillips?
Yes, ma'am. With Ada Jenkins, this is pretty big news for our area. Beginning in April, Habitat for Humanity of the Charlotte region will relocate its Cornelius office to within the Ada Jenkins Center. Habitat staff will work on site at the Ada Jenkins Center, occupying 2 large suites and sharing meeting space, as well as support staff. The result equals greater collaboration of our services for our clients. Just a reminder that the Low Income Energy Assistance Program is taking place until March 31st. This program is a federal program that assists households with their home heating needs. You do not have to be at risk of disconnection or delinquent to take advantage of this one-time direct vendor payment in the amount of $300, $400, or $500. Residents must meet the income guidelines, be responsible for the bill, provide their account number, and show proof of income. Assistance is available again until the end of March or until the funds run out, which has not happened yet. Qualifying household criteria: 1 U.S. citizen or legal resident, income below 130% of the federal poverty level, responsible for energy bills. You do not have to be behind on your power or natural gas bill for assistance. To apply and to learn about more programs, you can visit mecnc.gov/DSS, or if you need assistance with this, please reach out to me directly and I will get you connected to the right people. And then in Visit Lake Norman news, NC Amateur Sports recently announced that the Body Armor State Games will return to Lake Norman in the greater Charlotte region in 2023 and 2024. Visit Lake Norman, Visit Charlotte, and Visit Morrisville partner to bid and host the games. Games bring in 10,000 plus athletes that compete across 33 different sports. Also, the Carolina Bass Challenge fishing tournament returns to Lake Norman on Saturday, February 26th. 150 plus boats will launch and weigh in at Blythe Landing in Huntersville. Visit Lake Norman is in the final year of a 3-year host agreement with Carolina Bass Challenge. And that's all I have, Madam Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you to all of you. Does anyone have any staff questions at this time? Commissioner Kidwell.
Yes, I have a few, so please bear with me.
Okay.
Ms. Huffman, you're on around. You recently provided the town board with numbers from Discovery Place Kids. As I dove into those numbers, it looks like on average for the years of 2015 through 2019, they had 688 people visit daily during their operating hours. They average about 98 people per hour. Is it possible for them to provide how they are measuring their numbers, with what technology, and provide the board with financial to support those numbers?
We'll be happy to ask them for that, how they calculated the numbers and
Yes, ma'am.
copy of their financials. I'm confident they copy their financials on their website, but we'll get that both. Yes, sir.
All right, thank you, ma'am. Ms. Sloop?
Yes.
Just need some clarification. One of the reasons that's continuously given for not wanting to pull items off the consent agenda to vote on is we would end up in litigation if it was a developer or an individual who paid for such public hearing or some item change. However, if the town staff is calling for such public hearings and not an individual or developer, would the town then file a case or a complaint against themselves if it was voted against?
So the reason that we typically have our calls for public hearings, which are not legally required, they're actually going kind of a step above and beyond what is legally required just to provide additional notice. The reason we typically have those on consent is because we typically do not deny any requests for public hearings.
I understand that, but the case given is it's generally that if we vote against it, we're going to end up in litigation. So I'm saying where the town is calling for a public hearing, staff is, and we want it, if an individual wants it moved up for further discussion or just a breakdown of what that public hearing is going to consist of, would the town sue themselves?
So I understand the question. I was just providing the background as to we wouldn't typically deny a request for a public hearing because we wouldn't want to be in the business of picking and choosing which public hearings that we allowed versus disallowed. I highly doubt that the town would try to sue itself, though, in response to your question.
Okay. And is there any any background or proof that, because we pulled things off the consent agenda to discuss them in the past public hearings. Has any of those ever been voted against not to be heard?
So for public hearings themselves, we would never have a public hearing on consent. But the call for a
Or
public
the call for
hearing,
them, yes.
yes, so the call for a public hearing, and Jack can chime in if he's around, but I believe in discussions that I had with him earlier today that in his 20 years with the town, we've never denied a request for a public hearing.
Okay. All right. Sorry, Madam Mayor, I still have a few more. Mr. Richards, are you around?
He's probably on the standby on the attendees,
Okay.
so Larry may have to pull him over.
Hello,
Hey, Mr. Richards, how are you today?
good yourself?
Good. Hey, we may or may not potentially talk about something called traditional neighborhood development, urban conditional district. Would you mind just kind of giving a summary of what that is?
A tradition. It's one of our one of our zoning districts in our ordinance, and it allows for more of a, in layman's terms, throwback old school neighborhood as opposed to what you see in your contemporary subdivisions. That's pretty much it in a nutshell.
Okay, thank you very much.
Mhm.
I'm going to butcher this name. I think you've butchered it before, Madam Mayor, but Miss Melans,
Melans?
yes. Is she available?
Commissioner Kidwell, this is Jack Semino. I don't believe she is, she has any items on the agenda, but I would be happy to try to answer any questions that Mike could answer.
That would be great, Jack. Thank you very much. We may or may not potentially talk about downzoning. And I'd just like a brief explanation of what downzoning is.
Yeah, it's just, generally speaking, if you have a property, and let's just use residential zoning. Let's just say you have residential zoning that allows 5 units an acre, and it gets changed down to 2 units an acre zoning. This is hypothetical. That would be considered downzoning. Does that help answer it?
Yes, it does. Thank you. And then, Jack, if you're still there, since Ms. Melines is not available, I'd like to talk about the potential of rooftop amenities.
Yes, you want me to just talk about?
I'm just curious, I'll hold off and wait to talk about this later under a different discussion. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Commissioner Kidwell. Any other questions for staff? Seeing none, we will move on to public comments, requests, and presentations. And I would like to ask Ms. BJ Caldwell to come to speak tonight. I have to say, as we were as you heard earlier, as we have moved into Black History Month, I felt it was very important for us to honor that throughout the month of February. And I asked Ms. Caldwell if she would mind coming to speak tonight. And I see that she's joining us from Town Hall this evening. Thank you, Ms. Caldwell. I'm going to turn it over to you for your presentation tonight.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone, and thank you for inviting me. I've had a wonderful day. We were over at Waymer, and that went real well. And I'm glad that I was able to come in person because I am mystified by this Zoom. So I hope by soon that the pandemic will allow us to meet in person, hopefully. But if not, as long as you will give me special permission to come in, I'll be delighted to come in. And my Black History presentation today is on a well-kept secret in Huntersville. It's the Rosenwald School No. 2 located on Dalewood Drive. Institutions of this type of learning have all but disappeared, and they are endangered of being lost to time. This is significant as there are only a few left to tell the story of how African Americans got their first chance to be educated and literate in the 20th century. It is worth being publicized that soon it may have the designation of a historic landmark locally. So now for a little more information about Huntersville Rosenwald School number 2 for Black children. For the last 100 years, Pottstown leaders humbled and sacrificed themselves to answer the call for justice for its citizens. They fought to be good. They fought for the good of others, especially the elderly and children. For the sake of humanity, their focus was and is on compassion for the most vulnerable citizens. Black congregations opened their doors to help educate the descendants of the enslaved early on. After the Civil War, Huntersville governing body had no options for educating the descendants of the enslaved who had been forbidden to learn to read or write. Education was to be their only way out of poverty. So Huntersville Rosenwald School was the means citizens used to move beyond being stuck illiterate to an opportunity of becoming educated. Julius Rosenwald and Booker T. Washington answered this call by creating the matching grant program that led to Rosenwald schools being built throughout the South. And believe it or not, 813 were in North Carolina. Huntersville is the proud owner of 2. You may not know this, but the Caldwell Rosenwald School located on Highway 73, I think it's Burgess Supply, is one, and the Rosenwald School number 2 for Black children on Dalewood is the other. Today, the Park and Rec Director, Mr. Michael J. Cox, gave me the good news. I don't know if you have it yet, but the little Rosenwald School will be available back as a rental in March of 2022. As is evident 100 years later, change has come to Pottstown, and over half of its original citizens have died or moved away. Today, there is no Pottstown. It's the site of homes to several nationalities and is a bargaining chip between the town and the developer. And I hate to hit you with that, but that's how I see it. And if you can make some changes to help me understand that that is a mischaracterization, I certainly shall appreciate it. And thank you for the opportunity to give you a listening to what is on the heart of some of the people in Pottstown, or what was Pottstown. Thank you and have a good evening and enjoy the rest of your February Black History Month. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Caldwell. Greatly appreciated. So now we're going to go ahead and move into agenda changes. Do we have any agenda changes this evening?
Yes, we do.
Commissioner Munger.
Yes. I'd like to make a motion to move items 9E, 9F, 9G, and 9H to the consent agenda as items 10B, 10C, 10D, and 10E.
Do I have a motion to move items 9E through 9H to consent? Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Commissioner Phillips has seconded that motion. Is there any discussion around moving the items 9E through 9H from consent? Before we start with discussion, I would like to refer back to our rules of procedure under our Rule 4, Item C. This is the consent agenda. Just to make sure that we're all understanding our rules. This is approval of minutes and other items that are judged to be controversial and routine shall be placed on the consent agenda. And then it moves on to say, as a matter of fact, I'm just going to read the whole thing. Give me a moment so everybody understands our rules. The board may designate a part of the agenda as the consent agenda. Approval of minutes and other items that are judged to be non-controversial and routine shall be placed on the consent agenda by those preparing the proposed agenda. The town manager shall have the authority to place any item on the consent agenda as part of the proposed agenda. Any member may remove an item from the consent agenda and place it on the regular agenda while the agenda is being discussed and revised prior to its adoption at the beginning of the meeting. And we are now in that beginning of the meeting. So my question, as we're opening this up for discussion, my question to each of you, because I think that's the litmus test, is it non-confrontational or non-controversial and routine? I would like to hear from everyone, please, because I think we have continued down this path and we need to understand our rules and how we're going to be working with one another. And I'd love to be able to not have to stop here at agenda changes every board meeting. I have a motion and I have a second to move calling public hearings. They're all for calling public hearings over. Are any of these considered non-controversial and routine? Because obviously they're routine. We call public hearings every board meeting. So now it leaves us with the other litmus test of non-controversial. And I would also remind, before we start the dialogue, that we're not discussing the merits of the item. We're simply talking about calling of the public hearing. The discussion on those items comes during the public hearing itself. So I am going to, hold on, let me get my list so I don't leave anybody out. And I will start with Commissioner Phillips. And I would like to ask you regarding the calling of the public hearing. I'm sorry, Commissioner Boone, I see your hand.
Yes, point of order. Usually we have a motion and a second on the floor.
That
the
is
person
correct.
who made that motion is usually the first one to speak on the motion.
I'm sorry, repeat what you just said, please.
We have a motion and a second on the floor. The person who makes the motion is the person who speaks first, according
Fair
to
enough.
the rules of order.
Thank you, sir. Fair enough. Commissioner Munger, would you like to kick us off?
So just I guess I'll keep it simple. Based on your rules, is this routine? Yes. Is this non-controversial? Yes. And I answer that to all four of the items.
Thank you, Commissioner Munger. Then I will move from there. I'll just go to Commissioner Kidwell, because I'm sure you've got some points you would like to make.
Well, and as I said last time, being transparent and with the general public, I see if it's non-controversial, if it's routine, then what's the problem with actually talking about it? Getting a little bit more summary from town staff about what it's about. I mean, for instance, 10F, or what would be 10F, calling for a public hearing for the TOD, talks about petition TA 2202, which isn't even on the website yet. Yes, we're calling for a public hearing for something that's not available for the public to even see. I think that would be a great discussion point. We talk about another one here that's someone consider routine and non-controversial. It's about amenities on rooftops, when in fact what they're using for the amenities and rooftop section is one of the most controversial votes of the previous board, and that was the North State project. So there's a lot of questions that should be asked before that comes in front of us. And I think, that is controversial. That was one of the main reasons that Save Downtown Huntersville rose up And now we're having something that's going to be calling for a public hearing that the HOA board either, I think it heard 2 or 3 times, voted on it. They were divided vote, and yet staff is still bringing it in front of us. And I think we should talk about that before we call for a public hearing. And as the attorney stated, these are public hearings called by staff, so we are not going to be litigated by our own staff if we say, you know what, I want more information before that's called to a public hearing, or we say no to that, or we say yes, but make sure you have your ducks in a row for that public hearing. Otherwise, staff comes unprepared for the public hearing to talk to us about things.
So I would like to, since
point of order,
you're bringing this up, excuse me?
Point of order. Since we are talking about rules, Rule 9 on our rules says when the presiding officer is in active debate or become engaged in debate on a particular proposal, he or she may not, but is required to designate another board member to preside over the debate. Also, under Robert's Rules of Order, everybody else should speak before the chair, which is the mayor position, should engage and should being the key word, be very ambivalent to either any of the issues.
And I am happy to do that. I will tell you, all of you, and for everyone, my preference is to be completely objective and to sit back, and the board needs to be working through these things. When I'm put in a position where I'm having to vote, that is a different conversation. I want to make sure that every one of us understands the rules in which we are working. I am very frustrated that there seems to be an unwillingness of this board to work together, because that's what I'm seeing right now. So I think that it's very important that each and every one of you collectively is working to find resolution and solutions and not being combative with one another, especially on a consent agenda. And I'm simply laying the rules out, and then everyone is having the opportunity to weigh in. And I also think at some point, after all of you have this opportunity to weigh in, that then we'll also allow the town attorney to come in and share with us her views as well. And at that point, I want you collectively to make some decisions to move forward. But we as a board, this board continues to be stymied. And we've got to figure out how to work together. Have to. Otherwise, what I'm seeing are individuals digging their heels in on either side, and we're never going to get anywhere. That's what I'm seeing. And that's what I would like to change. We've got to work together for the common good. And the reason that every single one of you are here is for the residents of this community. I believe that. I know that each one of you love this community. We shouldn't be stymied over what's on consent, and calling a public hearing should be non-controversial. And yet here we sit. Thank you, Commissioner Kidwell. I'm going to move through so everyone has an opportunity to speak. Commissioner Partee, would you like to share your thoughts?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I'm going to drop down to item 9H, which is now 10E. And the reason why I'm particularly focused on this particular change, this provision to amend the zoning ordinance article, because last month I was the only dissenting vote against this one. So I cannot, in good faith, vote to move this over because I was the only dissenting vote. And now the commissioner wants to move it over, which is like, to me, a poison pill. And it gets me to get I can vote against it, but I was only to send and vote on this article, on this particular ordinance article. And I still feel that I haven't been adequately satisfied about why this is on here and not kicked back to the downtown committee and let them make the decision on it.
So Commissioner
And I wasn't even
Partee-
included last month. Can I finish, Mayor?
I just need a point of order
And
because we're
that's
not
just-
debating the items, the substance of them. We're not debating because that happens through the process of public hearing and moving forward. Ththat's the reason, right? The
Okay,
whole
my
point is to
issue
call
is
the
that I
public hearing.
dissented on it. Okay, I dissented on it last month and I can't vote for it now.
Thank you, Commissioner Partee. Commissioner
Welcome.
Kovacs.
So your two questions were, what were your two questions?
My two questions were, is this routine? Do we do this regularly, calling for public hearings? And then the second one, are calling a public hearing, it should be non-controversial. And the items that are on the consent agenda should be non-controversial.
I do think that we do this, but I can't agree with the fact that they are non-controversial. As Commissioner Kidwell and now Commissioner Partee pointed out, there's some important topics and they are ones that have to do with our planning board bringing them up, not a applicant. So my answer is no to the second question.
Thank you, Commissioner Kovacs. Commissioner Boone.
Well, it seems to me like we started this discussion or debate, and then you set the rules of the debate after Commissioner Kidwell made his opening statement that you can't change the rules once the debate starts. And I firmly believe if one commissioner has one question, then that item needs to be pulled off the consent agenda. Thank you.
Commissioner Phillips.
Dealing with a toddler is less frustrating than this is right now, honestly. Calling a public hearing is non-controversial. It is routine. I feel like we should be setting and showing the same respects and standards for our staff that we show to third parties. I think that is problematic for me. These discussions right now have me concerned because I feel like people are already showing their partiality. And also, public hearings are for the public. They're not for us. And sitting here saying, people saying, well, I don't like this one. Well, I don't like that one. We're all allowed our own views and feelings on these things. But the thing is, the public, not us, the public deserves to have these hearings called so they can tell us how they feel and think. And frankly, there have been things that have been public hearings I didn't support. And I still supported them being a public hearing because it wasn't about Stacy's interest. It was about the best interest of Huntersville. And I would like to see us be better about this. And the thing is, if we don't want to call public hearings because we don't like something, then we're getting in our own way. And I just really hope that this is the end of this because we should be better. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you, Commissioner Phillips. Mr. Roberts?
Yeah, Mayor, just a suggestion. Calling public hearings are not required, and probably not many towns do it at all. You got to follow the statutes. You got to have a public hearing when the public hearing is required. You got to go to the planning board. You got to go through all these processes. But we're getting hung up on the simple thing of calling for a public hearing. Probably, if we did our research, not many, if any, do that. So if we didn't have those on the agenda to call for the public hearings, we may not be having this simple debate. That's just a suggestion, but obviously the board can do what they want to. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Roberts. Ms. Sloat, would you like to weigh in at all?
The only thing that I would add to the conversation, aside from what Anthony had just mentioned as far as the calls not being legally required, is that what is required is that once we've called the public hearings, we still have to go through the notice requirements that are in the statute, publish the notice. We then have the public hearing where the public can come and speak. The planning board then considers it, at which time the public can speak at the planning board meeting. We then have it come back to the town board a third time for final action when the public can also speak at the comment period. So there are multiple times for the public to weigh in on these matters that come before the board. I just wanted to make sure that it was understood that the town has always been doing what is legally required as far as notice. This is just going above and beyond that required notice as an additional heads up that a public hearing is coming down the pipeline. In no way, by not having the call for public hearing, do we subrogate any of the rights for the public to speak at the public comment periods on multiple occasions.
Ms. Loop, let me ask this question. By having the conversations around whether or not to call for the public hearing, is the board then debating the issue before the public ever even gets the opportunity to hear it?
Depending on the extent of the conversations around the question, that is a potential. There are specific conflict of interest rules that have to be considered. And really the question that's before the board right now is whether or not to call the public hearing. The question is not whether or not you are in support of or against a particular item that is up for public hearing.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Commissioner Kidwell.
You know, this board, and I'll tell you, after the last meeting, I was texting Commissioner Munger, and no hard feelings. And maybe that's an issue with some people on the board about if they lose an argument or whatever, that they've got hard feelings against the opposing team, so to speak, but I don't. So, and we're not all going to get along. There are going to be a lot of 3-3 votes. And as far as working together, I think I'm doing a pretty good job. I'm bringing it up. We're talking about it. The board either then votes for it or votes down. That's called working together. That's called having open, honest discussion about these items. You know, so you guys, it's your vote. And I've said this a long time. It's your vote. You have to stand by it. You know, when I call these items up, it's not so I can say we're voting against this, we're voting no on that. It's to bring and shed more light about what's coming down the line. We have 2 public hearings tonight that were thrown back off the main agenda to consent agenda that on social media, people were they were like, wait, we're wanting to put senior housing where? They had no idea until they saw it get moved. Why didn't we talk about the questions were asked? We're talking about the other public hearing regarding the waste recycling center here in Huntersville. Mm-hmm. You know, I just had a conversation with a citizen this weekend about that. How much they use it. Is an expansion great for the town? You know, are we going to be able to do more there? These are the type of things. Hey, what are we calling this public hearing for? Hey, you know what? Yeah, it's for a age-restricted community. It's going to be over so-and-so. The public hearing will be this date. That's why we're doing this. It's just simply to talk more about it. Not to vote against it, not to vote for it, but to bring more information forward for the general public. So if they are very and truly and validly interested in speaking for or against and coming to those meetings, which hopefully won't be virtual anymore, they can. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Kidwell. And I would echo your sentiments that the work that the board does should not be personal, that the work that the board does should be the vote is the vote, and then you move on to the next topic, that there should not be, as you stated, hard feelings from anyone. Each and every one of you were elected for a reason and a purpose, and for your voice to be heard. So I hope that while we've had lively discussion, that doesn't prevent from discussion from happening again in the future as we move through not only this evening, but tomorrow and the next day and the next day. Because that should never be part of our vocabulary as a board. Any other discussion? Seeing none, I do have to do a roll call. Okay? So Hardin, let me get everything in front of me. Commissioner Phillips,
Yes.
Commissioner Partee,
Attorney Sloop had clarified it. We're just moving over public hearing. I'm a yes.
Commissioner Munger,
Yes, sorry.
Commissioner Kovacs,
No.
Commissioner Kidwell,
Commissioner Kidwell, no.
and Commissioner Boone.
Nope.
We are going to continue to have to work through these. I understand, or at least I'm attempting to understand, Commissioner Kidwell, your points on this. And I'm struggling with it. I'm not going to lie. I struggle with it because we're already going a step above what state statute requires. I'm struggling because if we leave it under other business, then it is presumed that discussion in a vote in a negative is allowed. And I certainly don't want to mislead anyone in that regard. And I struggle because we have always, since I've been on the town board, we've always called for public hearings in this manner. And that's the piece that I'm struggle with, because it was not an issue when you served with me before. And I also understand that people change and people may view things differently as we proceed and as we grow. But at this point, I do not see my pros and cons here, and wading through this and listening to our town attorney leads me still to believe that these items should be on consent. Therefore, I will vote to move for those 4 calling of public hearings for March the 7th over to consent. If I can't reconcile the possible discussion and back and forth and debate over calling a public hearing, then I feel like I need to make sure that it is in the consent space, because it shows that it's non-controversial and it is routine. It meets the litmus test of our own rules of procedure. So that's where I'm going to stand this evening on our agenda changes. So I have a motion. I have a second. I have a vote of the affirmative. And now I need to do I need to do one more roll call, Janet, just to confirm? I don't believe I do. No, thank you very much. So the agenda for this evening has now been set. And we will now move into our public hearings. Item 8A, conduct a public hearing on petition R21-16, a request by Mosaic Development Group to rezone 9.8 acres at 9102 Beatties Ford Road from rural district to neighborhood residential conditional district for age-restricted multifamily housing. Mr. Richards, this is your public hearing. I turn it over to you.
Good evening. Thank you, everyone. At this time, I'd like to submit my staff report for the record. As the mayor has kindly said, this is, hang on one moment, let me share my screen. A conditional rezoning for R2116, a proposal by Mosaic Development Group. As the mayor kindly stated, this is down on Beatties Ford Road. It is 9.8 acres at 9102 Beatties Ford. This area is under some changes recently. We have the Oak Grove Hill subdivision that's being developed currently to the east. That's the neighborhood residential. In yellow, to the north, we have the Long Creek Storage mini storage facility. To the west, you have the two CMS schools, Long Creek Elementary, as well as the Montessori School. And to the south, you have two older rezonings, one by Glenwood Development and the other is the Long Creek Retail. Here's a current aerial of the site. You can see there's one home on the site as well as an accessory structure. This has been looked at by the Charlotte Historic Society. It's one of their eligible homes, but as of per our conversations with them lately, they have no interest in pursuing a historic designation for that. So we'll keep continuing on. Here's the site. Like we said, it's 9.8 acres, currently zoned neighborhood residential. Current use is single family. No one is currently living in the home. The Mosaic Group is proposing for a age-restricted multifamily at this site, one building, one lot. The application would allow for up to 130 multifamily units, but currently they're only asking for 123. In recent discussions with the development team, that number may scoot down just a little bit depending on their product and how the marketing works. So at that 123 units, you would have a density of 12.5 units per acre. We have, let me move you guys to the other side of my screen. We have the site currently is covered by 6.3 acres of tree canopy. That's 64%. They would need to save 10% of the site. So currently they're proposing to save 32%, which is 3.15 acres. There are 25 specimen trees on the property. They're required to save 10%, which would be 13 trees. Currently they're saving 52%. And let me do something here real quick. They are going to be asking for two modifications. The first modification is for a reduction in parking. The ordinance requires that for every one bedroom unit, there's one parking space required, and for units that have two or more bedrooms, that you have to have 1.5 spaces. They are proposing to, or they're asking for a reduction down to just over one parking space per unit. We're working through them, with them to see its staff stance on this. Currently, we've asked them to provide a parking study of all their communities, and they have done that. Currently, they average 1.25 spaces per unit across all of their portfolio. That being said, their average residents have less than one car per unit. It's just over a half a car per unit. When it comes to financing of their product, the North Carolina Financing Authority requires a minimum of one space per unit. So at this time, staff is working with the developer on coming to a solution on this to see if they can come up to our standard. If not, we'll try to work with them to get some comfort level to see if we will support this modification. There's a second modification for side yard parking. As you may or may not know, apartment building types require parking to be on the side or rear. Due to the unique topography and the design of the shape of this parcel, the developer is asking for side yard parking. We feel that we can support this request due to the difference in elevation. The parking would be approximately 5 to 8 feet below the elevation of Beatties Ford Road. They are also offering a 20-foot buffer in which that would be heavily utilizing evergreen trees on the area that would be adjacent to the parking. And we'll get down to a slide here in just a second. You can see here's the elevations of the products. If you're looking in off of Beatties Ford Road, this is what you'd see. As you can see, the main entrance to the front is below grade. It's probably about 5 to 8 feet, depending on how grading works out at final design. As we said, there would be offering 20 feet of vegetation along the front, which is not required. In this second view down here on the right, you'll see the main entrance to the facility. comes to the 2040 community plan, this project is located in the activity center, which allows for and encourages a mixture of use, including multifamily if designed properly. We have several ordinances or several parts of the 2040 community plan that would support this. Going back to all the way back to 2005 in the Beatties Ford Road, Mount Holly, Huntersville small area plan, it actually calls for looking into the future that potentially this could be a good area that allows for elderly housing. It's a good spot for attached housing. So here we are, 15, 16 years later, and due to good planning practices, here we are starting to fulfill these thoughts. And so at this time, we would be in support of this as long as we can address the concerns that we have with the parking modification, number one. And I'm here to answer any questions. And I believe the development team is online, but I can't quite see them. I don't know if Larry's got them pulled up or not, but they have a short presentation. And I'm here. I don't know if you guys want to hear from them first or ask me of questions.
All right, I'm going to go do a roll call since I can't see everyone in regards to your questions. Commissioner Boone, do you have any questions this evening for staff?
I have questions, but I don't know who to ask yet since I haven't heard the applicant speak.
Okay. Does anyone have questions? I'm going to go back through. Anyone have questions for staff? And then we'll move over to the applicant. Commissioner Kidwell.
I do have some questions for staff. May I speak now?
Yes, absolutely.
All right. Brian, I noticed this application that no TIA was required.
That's correct.
And I'm assuming it's because it has the term age restricted, 55 and older.
That would be correct. So there was no TIA.
However, this 3-story apartment and age restricted, there's often, when people talk, it's age restricted community, they think patio homes or townhomes. And this is essentially a 3-story apartment building, age restricted community, not like some of the other ones we have here in Huntersville, but it's right across the street from a shopping plaza. So with no TIA required, who is going to be responsible for building sidewalks, doing intersection improvements for a crosswalk? So these individuals who, if they've only got one car or if they want to walk over there to get in their steps and exercise, to go shopping at the Walgreens to pick up a prescription or the food, Food Line or Lowe's Food, wherever it is over there, to do their grocery shopping. Who's responsible for those improvements?
Sure. The applicant will be installing a 10-foot side path along their property edge, along the front of the building. They're also going to have a trail for their residents to enjoy. As with anything else, we look at each individual. Typically, Commissioner Kidwell, we don't require off-site improvements for sidewalks, but those would be traffic improvements if warranted. But due to the town's TIA policy, as well as NCDOT's, a traffic study was not warranted for that. So it would,
just because it's not warranted, though, it's not something, that is something we can ask for in the final, though.
I would defer to Ms. Sloop about asking for off-site improvements that aren't required as part of the TIA.
Is that something we should ask, not we would ask?
That would be up for you to ask of the applicant to see if they would be willing to do that.
Because I think it would be it would not be beneficial to anybody to move into these apartments who may or may not have 1.5 cars to try to access the amenities of a local shopping center. And then walking out there could be very dangerous. But that is all I have. Oh, one other thing. Is there elevators?
I will defer to the applicant on that.
Okay, they can answer that. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Kidwell. We'll go to Commissioner Kovacs. Do you have any questions for staff at this time?
No, ma'am.
Thank you. Commissioner Munger?
Yeah, a couple of questions for staff. I know in years past we've approved a number of the over 55 communities, and do you have an approximate count of the number of units that are coming to Huntersville that are 55 over specific?
That is a fantastic question. I thought about that at dinner. I have not had a chance to look that up, but I will get you that answer.
Okay, appreciate that.
Yes, sir.
Then on this particular property, the location that I believe is south and west in that little L portion, that fill-in portion, that happens to be a commercial CD property. Do we have any concerns about having that connectivity from a commercial property into this particular development?
No, the applicant has been kind enough to reserve right-of-way for a public street through these properties that would connect over to Oak Grove Hill. Because this is a one building, one lot situation, not a subdivision, we could not require that, but they're going to offer that to us as one of their offerings as part of the conditional rezoning.
Okay, cool. And my last question is, I know in and around this particular portion of town, a lot of times we have to deal with critical watershed. Is that a situation here, or do we have any concerns about the amount of impervious area?
Geographically, they have hit the lottery. They are out of the critical watershed. So,
okay. Well, there you go. That's all I have, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Partee, do you have questions for staff?
Yeah, just one question. The home that's on the property right now, is that home being considered as a historical landmark? Will that be removed? Are they going to remove that house?
It is still there.
Or remain?
No, we've reached out to the Historic Society. They do not have interest at this time to move forward in looking for to give status to that property.
Okay.
Thank you, Commissioner Partee. Commissioner Phillips?
No, ma'am, I'm good.
All right. So, Mr. Richards, we'll move on to the applicant. If the applicant would like to join us to speak.
We have Cindy Reed with the Irvin Law Group.
Hello, this is Cindy Reed. Can everybody hear me? Okay.
Yes.
Good. Thanks for having this public hearing tonight. And we're excited about this project because it is an affordable project. It's available to seniors who generally make less than 80% of the area median income. And again, I'm Cindy Reed with the Urban Law Group. We're the land use attorneys. Other folks on this call are the Mosaic nonprofit affordable housing group, and Jimmy Royster and Kathy Stillwell join us from that group. We also have Andy Brait from Colgan Nest and Stone, the engineer on the project. And I think the architect may be on the line too, but I'm not sure about that. So what I would like to do is to turn this over to Jimmy or Kathy so that they can tell you about Mosaic's background. They've been around for 50 years and have done multiple developments all over North Carolina.
Thank you, Cindy. This is Jimmy Royster with Mosaic Development.
So we're on slide number 2. Okay, sorry.
Thank you, commissioners and mayor, for your time. Mosaic Development Group is a 55-year-old Charlotte-based nonprofit. We work statewide, providing high-quality housing across the state. We have over 25 properties and over 1,200 units that serve. Some of our properties are for folks, specifically for folks with disabilities. Some are for families and some are for seniors. And tonight we're here talking about a senior property. And it's our mission and commitment to be a good partner with our communities. We have a long track record. We work in a lot of the communities multiple times. And you're only able to do that if you deliver on what you commit to and what you're looking to build. And we have the organizational structure and track record to do that. Brian, if you could advance this one. So we work with nonprofits. We work with the Catholic Diocese of Charlotte for our senior property in Mooresville. We've worked with Wesley CDC, which is affiliated with the Methodist Church. That's Huntersville based. We've worked with Western Community Action. We just finished up some hurricane relief work in the city of New Bern. And we work with some of the largest financial institutions in the country and in the world to be able to make these properties work. Bank of America, Truist, JP Morgan, Chase, RBC are our financial partners to make sure the properties are serving the community, remain an asset. Move ahead to the next slide, please. Thank you. So these next two slides here are just smattering of some of our senior properties, and what it is that we're trying to do. To us, street appeal is important and community is important. So the property on the left, this is our Cherry Gardens project. We can be in downtown Charlotte within 5 minutes from this property. Other smatterings properties from Moxville and Mooresville, having community spaces, having spaces that are having designated handicap units, but also all of our senior units being universal design, so that folks can age in place. The reality is a lot of the older homes that folks live in don't have the grab bars, don't have the access that folks be able to continue independent living. That we have this built into our apartments and into our designs. And there was a question regarding elevators. There'll be a minimum of 2 elevators in this building. We can move on to the next slide. But again, working with having community spaces, there's questions regarding parking and how folks have access. So we work with local churches and community groups to be able to help with transit for folks to be able to get to their services. Brian had earlier showed the survey that we had of our existing properties. Over half of our properties are for seniors, and just the reality in terms of the age group that we serve is just not a lot of folks have cars, but we're able to partner with folks to be able to continue to be thrive and be successful. The next couple of slides, Brian's already covered regarding some stuff, and I won't read to you your own plans for the town. But we picked this area purposely, both for consistency with the plan and then what is there in the community. So I think if you hop 2 slides forward, the site's proximity with CVS, the Family Dollar, and Food Lion. We think is ideal, where it gives seniors an opportunity to live in a place that is quiet, with also access to amenities. We also like that it's close to the LATA. That is a draw for seniors to remain active in the area. And we think this is a good mix. And a lot of our properties end up being the buffer between some of the commercial uses and the change that is coming to this area with the Long Creek retail. And the single family that is being built behind. So this is a very typical site for us. While we're here in Charlotte, we also do a lot of rural projects, smaller communities. That this is pretty typical for this product type for seniors from what we see. This is a little bit more details about the development and what we're looking to do. We're currently proposing at 123 units. For seniors 55 and up, that is baked into the deal. It is 55 and up. There's no exception to that. We're asking it in the zoning, so it is also conditional to this plan. This is independent living, so there are no nurses on site. If folks have care, that home care or rehab that they need, and we allow for that. But it is not a nursing facility. As stated earlier, universal design is a big part of what we do. We want seniors to be able to thrive. So all units have grab bars. They have call stations, for folks to be able to get assistance. So we are set up for folks to be able to survive and thrive independently. Like I said, we are local. We're here in Charlotte. We have an asset manager that manages all the property managers, and we don't exit our properties. We stay in them long term. So if there is a problem, if there's a concern, you can find us. It's not somebody out of state that's checked out. These are professionally managed. There's manager and maintenance staff that be able to make sure the property is not only looks stellar day one, but also year 30, as we're long-term owners. Toward the rear of the site, you're looking between us and the new single-family development coming in. There's a buffer of about 250 feet. In terms of traffic generation, some of the discussion earlier, traffic engineers and the numbers that they utilize, that senior housing is one of the lowest generators of traffic, and that the seniors tend to travel at off-peak hours because they don't have to go out in rush hour. So I think that kind of goes over a number of different things on the property. Have a couple more slides. The next one, just in terms of who our residents are, while it's a 55 and up, our average resident is typically 71. 80% of them are women, and 88% of them live alone is what we typically see. We've already gone through the elevations, can discuss those further or want. Also have additional slides of properties that exist in the area. I'm happy to show those or answer any questions. I just kind of turn back to the town and answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Mr. Royster. I will open it up and just kind of go down my list. Commissioner Boone, do you have any questions for the applicant?
I do. First of all, thank you for your presentation. My first question is, on your properties, what is the average number of first responders call on your properties?
I don't know that number. I could ask property management, but I don't know that number.
Okay, well, that leads into my second question. You say you're going to have professional managers on duty. Will that be 24/7?
No, sir. There's no, it is 40 hours a week for the manager and for maintenance staff. Okay. And then they have a emergency call number for folks for after hours.
And who monitors that emergency call number? 911 or a call center?
The emergency, it's for maintenance emergencies that gets called to the maintenance staff.
Okay. The sprinkler system, the hallways, I believe, have to be sprinklered by a code. Do the individual apartments have to be sprinklered?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Then my final question is, this is a very congested area, about twice a day during school. And I have some concern of either a ladder truck or an engine truck turning in off of Beatties Ford Road into the property. Does the fire marshal get involved in the certificate of occupancy on this property?
In terms of signing off on the final of the plans in the building once it's constructed?
Right. I'm concerned about a fire truck getting into the property during the peak of either dropping kids off or picking them up during school.
The plans typically have on a site plan will show how a fire truck gets in and gets out of the site, and also turns around and gets out. In terms of traffic on the public street, I believe that's outside of our typical scope. Perhaps Andy Britt or the planning department could speak to that.
Okay, and then a follow-up question from Commissioner Kidwell with the sidewalks is, where's the closest CATS bus stop?
The CATS bus stop is more than a mile.
Okay, thank you very much. That's all my questions, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Commissioner Boone. Commissioner Kidwell.
Yes, Mr. Royster. So my mother ran a facility very similar to this for 30 plus years. And they had pretty tight security to get in and out of the facility to protect the residents. Is this a key carded facility to where the residents will need a key card to get in and out doors, so they'll be locked, so someone just can't walk in and commit a crime?
Yes, sir. So there will be secured entry into the buildings. So that'll either be a fob type technology, like you mentioned, or a keypad that can be updated. But yes, that there's not individual access into each unit on the first floor. There's controlled access, I believe 4 or 5 doors into the building, and be able to, once folks actually use their, if it's a fob technology, you'll know who's actually accessing into the building each time.
And is this community, is it a gated community where it's got a drop down gate where if someone wanted to come in, they would have to have a key fob or enter a code into a gate to lift up a door, have it slide back or anything like that? Or is it just you drive in?
You just drive in. I think that would cause a traffic issue backing up if having a slider.
And thank you very much.
Thank you, Commissioner Kidwell. Commissioner Kovacs, do you have questions for the petitioner?
Yes. Well, I guess you answered one of my questions. I was going to ask about transportation and if there's, a shuttle or something, because it might be somewhat treacherous for them to walk to the stores and stuff. And you mentioned that there isn't, but you usually will connect with community groups. Have you put any feelers out for that, or do we know the likelihood of that? I just worry about them being able to get somewhere if not everyone has a car.
No, that's a wonderful question. In terms of the community partners had listed, shown before, our existing partners that we've worked with. We worked with the Catholic Diocese of Charlotte and Wesley CDC, and it's often the members that are actually at the property, their church connections, and those type of groups. Once we know who's actually living in the residence that we coordinate with, and then also the other nonprofits in the group. In the area to serve the community. So, it happens organically.
Okay. This question, I guess it might be half staff, half applicant. Do we know what the plans are for the Long Creek retail? Just trying to get a gauge on if it would be something that would be beneficial to this development, or...
I'll take that. Occasionally, we will get interest from a development group. Roughly 6 months ago, I talked to someone about reviving that plan. So it'll be totally up to the market if someone wants to move forward on that.
Okay. You mentioned that there is, I think Mr. Richards mentioned that there's going to be a walkway or something on the back of the property. Did you mention that?
Yes, there's a trail. The applicant's proposing a trail around in the wooded area.
Okay, so that's an undisturbed buffer, but they will just put in like a natural trail.
Jimmy, do you want to expand on that?
Yeah, we're looking at doing from the rear of the building, doing a trail, and then there's also a fire access to the side of the building that'll connect that up to Beatty's Ford as well. So there will be a loop that residents will have access to.
Okay. And this is, it's 55 and up, and it's income restricted. And what is our guarantee that it will stay that? I know you're a nonprofit, but what is our guarantee it'll stay that 55 and up and it'll stay income restricted?
That's a great question. So that happens in a number of different avenues here. So in the planning process here in the rezoning, we're asking for, as a condition of the planning, that this be age restricted. Mm-hmm. So even if somebody else wanted to come in and utilize this plan, the age restriction is baked into it on the land on the town side. So that end is one avenue that it's in. The other is there will be deed restrictions on this property that'll both be affordable and be seniors 55 and up. So it is both. That is at the state level. Our main financial partner is the North Carolina Housing Finance Agency, and we have to designate straight out of the gates if we are a family property and no restrictions, or we are age restricted. So we are fully in the process that we would be a senior only. 1 and 2 bedroom congregate building wouldn't work as family. There's no switching midstream here. So both rezoning, which is fully in the town's hands, and then also in the deed restrictions and the requirements of our funders that will remain 55 plus.
Your funding is tied to that income restriction being upheld?
Correct.
Okay, those are my questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Kovacs. Commissioner Munger, do you have questions for the applicant?
I believe I just have one. It was something that's kind of been bantered about that was related to the TIA or lack of a TIA, if you will. To the applicant, would you be willing to voluntarily contribute funds to improve sidewalks and or road-related improvements related to the needs of your residents?
In terms of just a capital improvement?
Yeah, I mean, kind of the mention, I'm trying to understand, there's the possibility of you having residents that would want to cross over to a possible future development across the street, and or there'd be sidewalks along that they would obviously want to make use of. So just trying to like project out, it would be a great benefit to the people who would end up living there, and it would be a desired need. And we're just trying to balance out the needs in terms of the capital improvement projects we have already and the additional needs that might be directly attributed to the residents of your particular development that they would want. So I'm just trying to understand if that's something you'd be willing to work with the town in terms of establishing a fund or something to that effect that would assist with those needs.
I can certainly take that back to our team and also discuss it with the staff in terms of what that would look like. We would be ecstatic if CATS would make a stop at this location, and that we have had sites where we've put in bus stops. I don't have any power over what CATS does, or routes, or how, I don't know how that works. But we're willing to have conversations with the town, particularly stuff that would be on site.
Okay. Yeah, I'd just be curious to hear back if you'd be willing to assist us on that. So great to hear from you on the future on that one. That's all I have.
Commissioner Partee, have any questions for the applicant?
Yes. Just one question. I'm very impressed with the fact that they have 13 properties already listed in the back. And so that means that gives me confidence that they are very proficient and secure in their product. You have 80% women and 20% men. 88% of the residents live alone. So with that, I feel pretty secure that this residence is appropriate for the area. Myself being way above age 65 and still active and driving, I think this is some residents that we really need to have around in Huntersville. So I like the idea. I like the way it's set up. And with that, I have no other further questions.
Thank you, Commissioner Partee. Commissioner Phillips.
Yes, ma'am. I just have one question, and it may not be able to answer tonight. You guys work off of the 60% medium income. I was wondering how you guys update that over time. Is it with census data? Is it yearly? Are people grandfathered in?
That's a great question. So the area median income is designated federally, and is by the county, and is updated yearly. In terms of the income limits, that folks are reviewed every year, and there is a tolerance. It's not really something you see in senior properties as much as somebody's income. They're not immediately moved out. There is a tolerance that if they met the income requirement on the day they first moved in and then they got a better job. They do encourage that, and you see that some at the family properties. There is some tolerance for that to go up. You don't really see that at the senior properties, but that information is re-reviewed each year, recertified.
Case by case.
Yes, everybody is recertified each year, and they provide their income information each year.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for the applicant? So seeing none, we will go ahead and then close this public hearing. Oh, wait, I'm not going to do that. I just remembered. We do have someone that has signed up to speak. Is Mr. Scott Barnett on the call this evening? I see him there. Mr. Barnett, you are currently on mute. Thank you for joining us this evening, Mr. Barnett, and thank you for signing up to speak during this public hearing. You've had the opportunity to kind of hear everything, and I'd like to turn this over to you for you to weigh in as well. Mr. Barnett, can you hear us?
While we're waiting on Mr. Barnett to see if he can get online, Director Semino could kind of give you a back of the envelope number for us. Commissioner Munger, we're in the 800 unit ballpark of age restricted units, and we'll firm that up if that changes significantly.
Thank you so much.
Can Brian?
Yes,
Sorry. So I know like there's age restricted, but there's also affordable age restricted. And in my last 2 years, the only thing that we seem to have gotten was the ask out of the Caldwell station. And that was what, 15, 20 units?
Correct.
Okay. Can you recall any more that came with income-based age restriction?
Not to my knowledge, but we'll dig into that as well.
Okay, thank you.
All right, Mr.
One more at the park. That was income-based as well, across from Primal Brewery. Roughly 130, 140 units.
All right. Mr. Barnett, can you hear us now? And we'll try to see if we can hear you as well. Does anyone else hear Mr. Barnett? Okay, because I don't either.
Mr. Barnett would like to give me a call. I'll be more than happy to relay his message to the board.
Well, and that's what I was going to ask was that Mr. Barnett, since we're having technical difficulties, if he wouldn't mind, if he can hear us, and I would love for you to reach out as well to him, if you wouldn't mind, Mr. Richards, reach out and get it written, his message written out so that can be sent to the board, so the board has it, and as well as to Janet Pearson, so it can be recorded into the public record.
Will do.
Thank you very much. So we will go ahead and now close that public hearing, and we will move on to item 8B. And then this is petition R21-14. It's a request by Mecklenburg County to amend the conditional district rezoning plan for their recycling facility at 12230 Statesville Road. The property is zoned special purpose conditional district, and the purpose of the amendment is to expand the boundaries of the active area of the facility. And I will turn this over to Mr. Priest.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I'll go ahead and put my staff report into the record, please. And so, yes, as was mentioned, R2114 is the application for a conditional rezoning amendment for the North Mecklenburg Recycling Center. And the applicant, of course, there being Mecklenburg County. So the area in question here is just to the south, the intersection of Highway 21 and Veerhoff. The zoning already is special purpose conditional district, so the modification would keep the zoning the same and just change the conditions of the actual plan itself. So the use would stay the same. So just getting a feel of where this is and what's around it. So you see the property highlighted here. And to the north, you have the CPCC commercial driver's license facility, the practicing, the training area. To the east, you have the Huntersville Athletic Recreation Center. And then to the south, you have some area of the Plum Creek neighborhood, single-family residential neighborhood, and some vacant area to the south here. So back in 1989, the Mecklenburg County got this property rezoned to that industrial type use. And then that rezoning was revised in 1994. And you'll see back in the plan, it had a condition where it established what was called active use boundaries. And so basically all the activity of the landfill had to be within that active use boundary, and it wasn't allowed to go any further. And along with those boundaries, you had 100-foot buffers to the east, to the north, to the south, and of course, you had lots of buffer to the south there toward the residential area. So that was the existing rezoning plan, and that's currently in place right now. So what the application is to come and modify those active use boundaries to expand the operation of the facility a little bit. So essentially, the areas that you see in yellow, more or less, are the area of the expansion. Expansion of the active area, and then to the south a little bit, there's an area that's used for miscellaneous storage that would be on the plan as well. So again, the current uses remain the same, just a little bit of an expansion of the boundaries that are currently in operation. So wanted to go through and just highlight some of the site comments and site recommendations that staff had there. So one of the site comments that we wanted to bring attention to is the applicant's Mecklenburg County is requesting a modification to the required buffers and setbacks. Article 9.16 requires a 100-foot setback for this type of use, for the residential recycling facility use. They're requesting it to be reduced down to 80 feet in certain points. Where is the 80 feet? That would be to the north, adjacent to CPCC here in the red, to the east, adjacent to the Huntersville Park, and to the west, here adjacent to Highway 21. So in red, you have the modification. In green, to the south, adjacent to Plum Creek, no modification is required. There's a setback of 420 feet of buffer and natural area there. So staff is supportive of these modifications to the buffer. The 80 feet should be plenty enough to make an opaque screen. In addition to that, they're putting in a fence along this area, an opaque privacy fence to add in screening. And the areas of which the modification is requested is against areas of similar uses. Civic use, again, to the east, commercial civic use, CPCC to the north, and then of course the highway. So the residential area, the less intense uses are being protected. Let's see, let's skip one here. So the tree save calculation, just wanted to mention that the tree survey that was submitted was somewhat incomplete, where staff can't immediately understand and show conformance to the ordinance specifically. 30% of the specimen trees are required to be saved on the site. That includes trees like small trees like dogwoods, cherries, or redbuds that are 12 inches in caliper and above. The issue is there are many, many trees that you can see on the tree survey, 18-inch tree, 12-inch tree. The species is not identified. and therefore whether or not it's a specimen cannot be identified. So looking at the site as a whole, there are many, many specimen trees on the site. It's very wooded. Many of them are being saved, but to ultimately be able to specify, okay, here's the number and here's the 30% requirement, we can't determine that with the information that's been submitted. If it's desired, the town board desires to have that specific number, we would need to get an updated tree survey to have that information. Veerhoff Drive connection. Back in 2017, CPCC, the town and the county got together and discussed the future development of the uses at the corner of 21 and Veerhoff. It was agreed that it would be very beneficial to not have direct access long-term to 21, but to have access to these facilities from the back, from Veerhoff Drive, considering some of the stacking issues that were taking place on 21, but then also the future of 21 being a divided highway and access potentially being restricted. So when CPCC developed the corner, they went and did their part by putting in some infrastructure in the back that was built to public street standards with the anticipation that the truck facility and in the future, this facility here, the recycling facility, would use it as access. So in the expansion plan, the initial connection here from the county is no longer on the plan. The county has determined, and we understand that specifically, that the logistics and the flow of the development right now is such that it's better to just to have access on 21. So that's understood, but just staff just wants to make that and comment and have that as a recommendation that it would be beneficial in the future. The Huntersville Gateway Plan, the 2020 Huntersville Bike Plan calls for the area in question to have greenway, a town greenway coming through the property. So if you see here, there's a greenway plan to come up north through one of the streams and then going to the east to the Huntersville Athletic Park. So you see here on the top right, that greenway in green is shown here in that area. So staff would recommend that that town greenway be accommodated for either with easements or some type of reservation, or at the least, perhaps maybe even a note on the plan in a general sense saying that the county would agree to work with the town to establish those greenways when they're eventually designed. Another specific aspect about this plan, the Plum Creek neighborhood has been very active in voicing some concerns in the past about potential nuisances from the facility, noise, lights, and smells, and those type of things. The county has been working diligently to address those concerns and has been had a second neighborhood meeting with the neighborhood and had a good discussion about those things. And the site plan actually does incorporate some of the tools that were used or in an effort to accommodate some of those concerns. You'll see here to the south of the property, a proposed noise abatement berm and a noise wall is proposed just to the south and in between the proposed expansion and the residential there to the south. So staff recommends approval of the application. Again, it's consistent with the 2040 Huntersville plan. There's not really a change of use, change of intensity per se, but it's just taking the existing use that was approved and in operation since the late 80s and modifying it and expanding it to a certain degree. So staff recommends approval of the application. So I'll leave it there. And I know several staff members from Mecklenburg County are here to speak as well on the application, but I'll be happy to answer any questions that the board has at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Priest. Commissioner Boone?
Yes, thank you, Brad. Did anybody check on the stonefly?
Well, we did check on the stonefly when the application originally came in, and we did get word back from the county that the development on this site would not affect the stonefly and the adjacent property. The drainage of the area would not have an impact on it.
Thank you.
Commissioner Kidwell, do you have any questions for staff at this time?
No, Brad, thank you for the excellent presentation. And, you addressed one of the concerns I had, and that was the stacking on 21 right there, especially on the Saturdays. I know that there are often a police officer out there trying to help direct individuals in and out of that facility. So, the potential connection to another road to let them, one way in, one way out would be very beneficial to the facility and the future roadway there. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Kidwell. Commissioner Kovacs, do you have any questions for staff?
Just one, and I might have missed it. If so, I apologize. I saw that the current buffer between the neighborhood and the facility the proposed buffer would be 420 feet. What is the current buffer?
I don't recall exactly what it is, but it's 400 feet plus whatever this distance is here. So probably another 150 feet,
yeah.
I would say, in that area. Yeah, so it's being reduced down to no less than the 420 feet.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Munger, do you have any questions for staff?
For staff, and also a question in general, will the applicant be making any sort of presentation and/or do we get to ask questions of the applicant after?
That was my intention. Mr. Priest, the applicant is with us, correct?
I cannot see all the participants. They were planning to come, several Mecklenburg County staff members. So and they sent me a PowerPoint. So my assumption is yes, they're here with us.
Okay.
My expectations will do that next.
Okay. And then I'll restrict this to just a question for staff. On the tree save, I do understand what you're saying about the specimen trees not being specified. According to the ordinance with the 30% specimen tree, hypothetically, if we said every single tree there is a specimen tree, would they be in compliance with the 30%?
There's ways that you could come up with a worst case scenario where you would try to accommodate it the best you can without surveying and having the species of each of them. I think if you're dealing with a percentage, number one, to have accuracy, you have to understand how many specimens there are in totality. However, if they counted the smaller trees that were removed as specimens, but in the ones that they save, the small trees were not counted as specimen and not saved, then you would have potentially the worst case scenario where you're not calling small specimen trees that are saved specimens when they may not be, but you are counting them as specimen trees when you are removing. So that if you updated the calculation that way, it would be better, more of a worst case scenario, but it's not possible to have complete accuracy unless you have that specimen, all the specimens identified.
That's a great way of explaining it. It makes perfect sense to me. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Partee, do you have any questions for staff at this time?
Yes, Brad. Just to piggyback on Commissioner Munger, will we be receiving an updated tree survey?
Staff has commented on the plan and requested it. We haven't gotten that back at this time. Again, just from the tree survey, it looks like it's very likely that they are conforming. But I don't know if the applicants are proposing to update that or not yet.
All right, thank you. And also with the Plum Creek community, are they receptive to the proposed buffers of the noise abatement? And
Well, I don't want.
Are they?
Yes, sir.
Are they receptive to that? Is that?
So
Okay.
an updated, we had an updated neighborhood meeting, the applicants did with them. There seemed to be some positive response from that in the summary and the questions and the discussion from that meeting was included in your agenda packet. And I think there was some positive discussion. I have not received any complaints or feedback from the neighborhood personally by email or phone since the application has come back up. So I take that and I interpret that as some positive feedback, and I think the mitigation standards from the county has produced fruit.
Okay. All right. And just one other question about the odor. Has that been rectified and corrected? I believe you mentioned that there was an odor that was permeating from the dump to the community.
Yes, sir. I would probably let Mecklenburg County get into that. There was some discussion about potential changes to the site in regard to the mixing and where the mixing of the mulch and so forth would take place, the hours of it, and then some mitigation techniques that they use in other parts of the county taking place on this site. But that was a discussion that hasn't been incorporated into the plan. So I do not know if that's the case yet or not.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Brad.
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Phillips, do you have any questions at this time for staff?
Yes, just one for background. When was Plum Creek built?
That is a great question. I want to say mid-90s. Perhaps someone else in staff who has some better knowledge of residential could chime in on that. But I'm wanting to say mid-90s.
Okay,
We'll
so
need to check on that.
Well, I was going to say, I'm just trying to, I'm long-term thinking that the center came before the neighborhood.
I'll be happy to research that after this meeting and get it back to you on a specific date.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
So, Mr. Priest, if the applicant is online and they would like to address the board.
Let's see, Darren Steinhilber or Mr. Jeffrey Smithberger or Mr. John Carmichael, are you on?
I do see Mr. Carmichael.
Okay, well, I will turn it over to Mr. Carmichael if he would like to go through the presentation.
I believe he's under the attendees at this moment. No. I'm sorry, I see Darren. Okay, I think they're on now. They should be. They have talking permitted.
All right.
Can you all hear me,
I will.
Madam Mayor?
Yes, I can hear you. Thank you for joining us this evening.
Thank you very much. I'm John Carmichael. Madam Mayor Pro Tem, and members of the Board of Commissioners and members of the Planning Board. My name is John Carmichael, and I'm working with Mecklenburg County on this rezoning petition. And with me tonight are Jeff Smithberger, Director of Mecklenburg County Solid Waste Management, Joe Hack of Mecklenburg County Solid Waste Management, and Matt Edwards of Kimley Horn and Associates. And I said they're supposed to be with me, and I'm very hopeful that they are. As Mr. Priest indicated, pursuant to this application, the county is requesting an amendment to the conditional rezoning plan for its facility located at 12230 Statesville Road to accommodate an expansion of the boundaries of the active use area on the site. The site's a little over 25 acres and it's zoned special purpose conditional district. And that's an aerial photograph of the site. I'm gonna turn it over to Mr. Smithberger now and let him walk you through some of the finer points of the presentation. Jeff, are you on? Darren or Joe or Matt, are y'all on? Well, I can try to walk you through this presentation if that's okay.
Absolutely.
Looks like, Mayor. Looks like Darren and John is on. He just unmuted himself.
Hello,
Okay,
hello.
If you're on.
This is Jeff Smithberger. Hello, hello.
Hey, Jeff, it's John. Can you hear me?
John, I can hear you fine. Sorry for the technical difficulties. I guess it somehow logged me on under my county machine name.
Okay. Well, I've given the introduction to everyone, and you can, if you want to start going through the presentation, that'd be wonderful.
Sure. Well, good evening. I'm Jeff Smithberger. I am your Director of Solid Waste for Mecklenburg County. And our Solid Waste Division is part of the Land Use and Environmental Services Agency called LUISA. Here to talk to you tonight about the expansion of our facility of our North MEC Center. This center has operated for the past 30 years, and it's quite frankly now time to upgrade us to better accommodate our customer needs, as well as working toward increasing material separation and overall waste reduction that we need for the facility. Now, we've had this expansion plan, sort of as Brad said, for the last couple of years. We may differ a little bit about the decision to use or not use the other road at Veerhoff, but quite frankly, the property where that other road would come in is controlled by both CPCC and the athletic folks, and it is not controlled by Mecklenburg County. And we've had some difficulties working through that part. We've committed to place a stub out to connect to a future road. But we also heard loud and clear from our very first meeting that we had with the nice folks at Plum Creek that they really didn't want that road to exist to come back through there, which is another one of the reasons why we have concentrated on putting turn lanes in to the opening of our facility off of Statesville Road. I know there was some discussion here earlier tonight about traffic backing up, but we have made interior modifications to our traffic plans that we have. We've installed what's called an express lane for people that don't have to pass crossing our scale facilities or our weighing sites. And so those people come in and use our facilities, I'll call it sort of unrestricted. And so we have not had any backups on the Statesville Road in the past 2 years. And incidentally, during the pandemic, we saw about a 20% increase in use of this Statesville Road facility from the good folks in the Huntersville area, because as they were staying home, they were also cleaning up more things and bringing more things to our facility. One of the questions I'm sure you'll ask is about why do we want to expand this full service center? And I heard one person refer to it tonight as a dump. I can assure you it's anything but a dump. Nothing stays at this facility. Everything gets transported back off of it at some point in time by someone who's either reusing it or recycling it. Somebody move to the next slide for us, please. Whoever is in control of this presentation. We have a 3-phase development plan, and phase 1 has already been constructed. We actually added a new office facility to this property within the existing use boundary, opened it in April of 2021. And it gave our workers at the site access to facilities that are accommodated or necessary for the Americans with Disabilities Act, as well as providing more modern facilities for training of our staff. Phase 2, as you see here, sort of in the aqua color, will be the installation of a canopy that will house infrastructure under it, where residents will come and recycle many things, and also allows us to keep those things out of the inclement weather. Behind that, immediately, you'll also see where we've talked about the noise wall and the berm. We are planting and committed to plant hundreds of evergreen trees back here behind this to screen ourselves from the neighborhood. Because one of the things that you'll find is that we are Mecklenburg County, and we are answerable to both you as a board, as well as my board of county commissioners, as well as all county residents. So we pledge to be the best community stewards that we can possibly be. Next slide, if you can. We have shown a rendering that shows the sight line between us and the neighboring folks at Plum Creek. The berm that you see is going to be earthen on the backside, which is what residents or anyone across from us would see. And then on the front side, it would be comprised of concrete as a retaining wall. And that is meant to reflect sound back away from any residents that we have. Along that, we've also talked about installing an odor control system, which is similar to the one that we installed at our 60-acre Compost Central facility, which is down around Valleydale Road, more in the centroid portion of the city of Charlotte. We had similar odor complaints there from people that don't like the smell of the wood processing that we do. We are not burying anything on site, nor are we adding any chemicals to it. It's just the natural earthy smell of wood and leaves as they come in, get ground, and then get hauled away. Next slide, which is the south section sight line, looks very, very similar, shows what it would look like to someone that is in the neighboring area of Plum Creek, looking across the valley, where the existing topography has the creek that's down in the valley, and then our facility. Notice we have a top of the shed, which will also work to serve to reduce the noise that we have and capturing and funneling noise back down towards the noise wall. Next slide. This is the picture of the office building, very park looking, that we built. It is a facility that houses the maintenance and supervisory staff that we have. It also has a small lunchroom and washroom facilities for our employees that we have up there. Before we constructed this facility, we only had one flushing toilet on the entire site, and the majority of our staff unfortunately had to use porta johns and porta potties. And so we have now upgraded to something that is much more modern than any of the infrastructure that we had before. Next slide. This one shows what our Compost Central facility looks like. And this is what the canopy will be at this facility. All of our facilities are going to have a very similar type design. We're also constructing another new facility down in the Steel Creek area of Charlotte, and it will also use a similar canopy. We found that these are very flexible, allow us to store and move materials under them while keeping things out of the weather. They'll also have compactor units shown in the front, similar to what these compactor units are, where residents can come and recycle cardboard and similar items. The putrescible waste or bag wastes would go into to those cans, as well as recyclable materials. Next slide. Shows a bit of a close-up of what happens under there. For example, our staff collects televisions for recycling. TVs are not allowed to be thrown away in landfills in the great state of North Carolina, so we have to recycle them. Our staff have to stack them on pallets, wrap them in plastic shrink wrap, keep them out of the weather, and those get hauled away for proper recycling. One of the enhancements that we will want to do at this facility up at North Mech is add the same things that we are adding to our other facilities. Things like book recycling and styrofoam recycling. All of those type of activities will occur underneath the covered shed that we have. The wall would then be immediately behind that with the noise berm, shielding us from noise to the local community. Next slide. This is part of a larger future capital improvements plan that Mecklenburg County Solid Waste has for our entire Mecklenburg County. We're adding about $60+ million of infrastructure to plan for growth in our community over the next 5 to 6 years. This includes additional facilities, expansions of facilities like this one here that we are meeting to talk about tonight, but it also includes other facilities that are outside of the town of Huntersville. If approval is granted by the town of Huntersville for this, we'll start to develop the detailed design drawings that we need for this, working with DOT and roadway enhancements and turn lanes. We have committed to add sidewalks in front of our facility that will align with other sidewalks that are already there by the CPCC facility. And for the future needs, we expect this to probably take about 2 years to complete all phases of our projects. Next slide. I want to pat ourselves on the back a little bit and let you know that we do want to be good neighbors. Mecklenburg County Solid Waste, we're the only solid waste organization in the entire state of North Carolina to have an environmental management system with state approval. What an environmental management system means to us is that we constantly review the things that we are doing to be good stewards to the environment. We have annual external audits to review this environmental compliance and stewardship, and we're proud of our record of being able to continually exceed all permit requirements. Next slide. If you or others want to get in touch with us, we are here to able to answer questions both tonight, and then if anyone has questions, they can write in afterwards. We have a general solid waste email. It's called solidwaste@mechnc.gov. We also have our robust Wipeout Waste website where we talk a lot about recycling and waste reduction here in Mecklenburg County. I will conclude my remarks tonight, but I would like to thank my project team. We are behind in doing this project, partly because of COVID. Brad was right. We met back in 2017 to talk about this project, and it's now 2022. We are long overdue and need to expand this facility in order to accommodate the growing needs of our community. Thank you again very much, and I look forward to continuing to work with you.
Thank you very much. Does anyone have any questions for the petitioner? And I'm just going to go down the roll since I can't see everyone on the screen. Commissioner Boone.
Yes, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Carmichael. I do have several questions. When speaking with the neighbors, they say that the smell is still an issue when you start grinding these leaves and things up that goes over to Toka Court and the whole Plum Creek neighborhood. But it was brought to my attention that if you have two different types of grinders, and it seems like the lower speed grinder is the quietest. Is that the one that you're going to be putting in there?
Mecklenburg County has 7 grinders right now, and we have what's called the slow speed, as you were aware, and we have a higher speed. The good news is the slow speed is quieter. The bad news is it will not grind everything that comes into our facilities. It grinds the smaller materials, but it won't grind the larger materials. So at this time, our commitment is that we will use the slow speed to the maximum extent that we can. But there will be some times that we have to mobilize and bring in our larger, higher speed grinder to grind up some of the larger pieces of wood and material that we get. That will be, probably 30% of the time. We also believe that constructing the noise wall, which isn't there now, will ameliorate 90% of any noise that they hear. We'll have to build that. You have our commitment that we will continue to work with you and the community on that. But it's to my advantage to be the best neighbor to this community that we can possibly be. And we will structure our operations to be the best that we can be. But noticing that there will be some times that we may be heard when we do grinding. Now, our hours of operation are 7 a.m. to 4 p.m. We never grind before 7. We never grind after 4. The only time that would occur is if we reached a state of emergency here in Mecklenburg County. Ice storms, hurricanes, tornadoes, whatever. This facility is designed to be able to help your community recover from that type of disaster. We realize that normal daily operations are different from times of emergency, but our equipment and our systems are geared for that type of an emergency situation for all of our communities.
Okay, thank you. That leads me to the start time, and you said it's 7 a.m., but some of the residents say that as early as 6:30, 6:15, your folks are getting ready for the day's work of backing trucks up, and we all know the sounds that they make. And if you could be a little more respectful of their time, I'd appreciate that. My final question comes from 2017 when the Verndorf Road cut through the CPC property was discussed. Is that road, if it does go through, will it go all the way over to Chickasaw Drive in Plum Creek? Because there's a stub there at Chickasaw.
That would not be a decision for my group. That would be a town of Huntersville decision.
Okay, Brad, can you help me out there?
Yeah, there's no official plan to make the connection to the Chickasaw. The recommendation from staff at this time was only concerning the non-residential development from CPCC to the recycling center.
Thank you. That's all of my questions.
Thank you, Commissioner Boone. Commissioner Kidwell, do you have any questions for the applicant?
I do not.
Thank you. Commissioner Kovacs?
I don't.
Thank you. Commissioner Munger?
I do. Okay. So my question is related to our staff recommendations. So what I've read, there are three recommendations from our staff, and I'm just wanting to get some clarification on some of it. The first one, probably going to be the most difficult. Adding rear connection to Verhoff Drive. And one of the things you had mentioned is that it's somewhat difficult in dealing with CPCC and the acquiring the land around Huntersville Athletic Park. Did I understand that correctly?
Yes, sir. Mecklenburg County does not own that property.
It doesn't.
No, ma'am. No, sir.
Okay. Because when I'm looking at it, and I'm using Polaris as my point of reference, and it does say chronic disease Mecklenburg County. Are you familiar with that entity?
I am not.
Okay. All right. That's probably something I'll have to get back to then, because my understanding, and Brad or Jack, one of you could tell me, it was an understanding with CPCC when they built that facility that we would be able to acquire or use that land to build this potential connection. Am I stating that correctly?
It was a discussion of the county, and I'll have to understand exactly who owns the Huntersville Park property, but I believe there's a county entity that does control the park. Now, what I do know specifically is that CPCC platted access easement, a public access easement through their property along the driveway that they built to the southern property line where the park recreation property line comes. So the idea was at some point Mecklenburg County having the ability to work on that park property to make the connection to that easement that was established by CPCC.
So as far as we can tell, it's a matter of Mecklenburg County needs to talk to Mecklenburg County about being able to acquire that land and use it for a road.
We believe so.
Okay.
That was the understanding.
All right.
I'd also
feel free. Go ahead.
Also like to add that when we as Solid Waste discussed it, we never talked about this in terms of this being the entrance to our facility. We were very clear about that. The town of Huntersville, when we talked to Mr. Priest, made it very clear that they did want it to be more of an entrance to our facility. At the time, we were not talking about doing any increases in width or turning lanes to Statesville Road. We now have gone back and looked at it and believe it's much more beneficial at this time to put those turn lanes into Statesville Road and continue to work with NCDOT as they continue to plan the expansion of that road for that to continue to be our main entrance and exit from the site. We have said that at any time that a road is built or can come through, we would consider having an emergency egress ingress at that site, but it wrecks the flow of traffic through our site, having that to become an ingress point.
Okay. Just one more comment on it real quick, because one of the other things I had heard stated was that the residents of Plum Creek were not in favor of that extension occurring. When I looked at the map, one of the things I noticed is the stub to it, to the potential Verhoff, was set back quite a bit from the actual edge of your property. Top of my head, if I had to guesstimate, it'd probably be about 650 feet away from Plum Creek itself, which is about 1/8 of a mile. Does that feel accurate?
Again, I'd have to look at a map with you, sir, to see exactly where you're referencing. Are you talking about the edge of our property to them, or
the stub itself?
Correct. One of the other concerns that we had about the stub is that the stub frequently in other places in Mecklenburg counties, stubs like that become a haven for unwanted activity and illegal dumping. And we were also not in favor of putting the stub in there for that purpose.
Okay. It's interesting. I mean, it is all your property, so I would assume that you would want to make sure that nothing like that happened on property owned by you.
Well, again, it makes it very difficult to enforce that. We would have to lean back towards the town of Huntersville Police Department to try to assist with any enforcement of illegal dumping that occurred there after hours. It's just another difficulty that, it was not something that we believe in terms needs to be done. Sir, we do not have any backup problems on Statesville Road at all. Haven't had any for the last 2 years.
At present time, we do have a lot of growth coming, but so now, but it's possible it will be new in the future.
And as I have said and committed to, is if the road ever gets built and finished through there, we have no problem in hooking to it. But one of the things that was a sticking point between us and CPCC is who takes care of the maintenance of that road? Who takes care of the snow removal of that road? If there's an accident, where does the liability fall? We have stumbled in being able to work out the details of perfecting a lease agreement with them to use this for access purposes because of those types of things and others.
Brad, real quick on that one, just want to touch on that, then I do want to move on to my next thing. Hypothetically, that road's built in and it runs from Verhoff all the way to their property. At what point or would it be ceded over to the town and become the town's responsibility?
It could be done rather fast if it's built to public street standards, as CPCC did. Mm-hmm. They would petition for it to be inspected and just go through the process to be taken over by the town as a public street. So things like maintenance, snow removal, town, that's us. We take care of that. It would be after that, after it's given to the town to for the county's benefit. I would echo the sentiment that, at the time when CPCC came in to construct the driveway, they didn't want to go through the process at that time to do a public street because it was going through the process would have been time intensive. So they said, well, let's do the easement for right now, and then the public street can come later once it's connected afterwards. That was my understanding of the connection timing at that time. But to your point, yes, if it was given to the town as a public street, then maintenance would not be an issue there later on.
So I'm going to go ahead and skip on to the next one, but thank you. Updating tree survey to accurately label species of all trees shown. My understanding right now is we have a tree survey that says 12-inch tree as opposed to 12-inch oak or 12-inch cherry. Do you have plans on updating the tree survey?
Yes.
Yes? Okay, that works. Number 3, provide 30-foot easements along applicable stream sections for future Huntersville greenways through the property, or adding a note stating the county commits to work with the town to locate the trails on the property once designed. Is that something we'd find agreeable?
Generally, yes.
Any comment you want to add to that, just so I understand the generally?
We work closely with our Park and Rec group as well. Mm-hmm. And as I understand it, this particular alignment does not align with what on the county plan. And so apparently there's a difference between a county plan and a town of Huntersville plan. We want to try to keep everybody happy, but one of the problems is that if you put a specific delineation at this particular point in time, it sort of kind of locks it down. Mm-hmm. And so if you put a generic description of we will work together to mutually agree upon where said trail would be, that kind of thing we have no problem with.
Brad, real quick, I caught you mid-drink. Does that sound, to me, that sounds reasonable. Does that sound reasonable to you as well?
Yes, absolutely. Yep, that was part of the recommendation as well. A general commitment to work together to make it happen, and that's fine.
And I just want to point out to this group tonight that trail would run through the buffer area between us and the homes. And so part of I heard from some of the folks that live in Plum Creek that said that they were ambivalent about having a trail with strangers walking through it behind their homes. So that may be a discussion for another time in another place. But while many people like greenways, when it ends up being behind your house, sometimes you might not like it.
Well, we've been down that road. We know, we're very familiar with that. But that's all the questions I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Munger. Commissioner Partee, do you have any questions for the applicant?
No.
Thank you. Commissioner Phillips?
No, ma'am.
Okay, great. No one has also signed up to speak. No one has signed up to speak on this public hearing. So we will go ahead and close the public hearing this evening. Thank you all. Thank you, Mr. Priest. Thank you, Mr. Carmichael and your team for joining us this evening. And we will now move on to item 9A. Item 9A is a petition R21-10. It's a conditional rezoning application from ADE 883 to rezone 10401 Hambright Road from corporate business to corporate business conditional district. The purpose of the rezoning is to reduce the planting requirements of the 40-foot commercial business buffer, and the property is located east of the intersection of Patterson Road and Hambright Road. Mr. Semino, you are doing the presentation this evening, correct?
Actually, I think the board members were going to discuss it, and then Brad Priest was going to show whatever slides might be helpful for the discussion. Thank you.
Okay, well, then I will open this up for discussion. Commissioner Boone.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I requested this along with Commissioner Phillips to be brought back on to the agenda for tonight's meeting. But before I get started, I'd just like to know if staff wants to put their report into the record at this time or after my presentation.
Thank you, Commissioner Boone. What I'll do is I'll wait for you for your opening remarks, and then afterwards I'll take care of the slides and do all at the same time following.
All righty. Well, I would like to start with the history on this Hambright Patterson Road entire area. Back in January 16th of 2018, the town made a major investment of $1.6 million to improve the entrance and to Patterson Road and Hambright Road with road improvements, water improvements, and gutter improvements. And just basically reading from the minutes from that meeting, the economical development incentive was presented by Jerry Vincent, the town manager, and he explained the request is related to a new manufacturing facility that has not been announced or its location. This is not a tax incentive plan, but an infrastructure incentive plan at $1.6 million for road improvement. It is to align an existing road as well as land acquisition of sidewalk improvements, also water line extension. The motion was made. It passed 4-2. The town has invested money. And at that point, I will let you do your report, Brad.
Thank you. Yeah, very, very good. Thank you. So I'll go ahead and put the staff report into the record at this time. And so this is essentially a reconsideration of North Chase at the Park, R21-10. So the site is here on the north side of Hambright Road, near the intersection of Patterson Road and Hambright. So on the 18th, the rezoning application was denied or not approved to reduce the planning requirements required in the ordinance. So this was the landscaping plan that you see here in front of you, where the applicant was proposing view corridors to be able to not have an opaque buffer, but to have a buffer that was only opaque in sections in order to allow visibility to the architectural elements of the nice building that they were going to put in. But that application did not pass back on the 18th. So the applicant set in a new landscaping plan that you see here in front of you. So the darker bluish green dots are the existing evergreen trees that they're pointing out. The light green dots that you see are new evergreen trees that are proposed here. And so with this new landscaping plan, the numbers were updated, staff updated the numbers. So you see on the left-hand side what's required by ordinance, the plan that was disapproved here in the middle, and then the updated landscaping numbers here on the right. They increased their evergreen trees by 18. They reduced their large maturing trees a bit, and the shrubs, of course, are the same. That's all I have, and I'd be happy to answer any questions that the board may have.
All right. Again, I can't see everyone, so I'm just going to go down my list. Commissioner Boone, do you have any questions for staff at this time?
I don't, but I do have a motion prepared when it comes back to that.
Thank you. Commissioner Kidwell, do you have any questions for staff at this time?
Well, just a couple points of clarification. So what Mr. Priest just showed is not in our packet. I'm looking through my packet here. I don't see the updated planning requirements. The page of my packet still has the November 22nd, 2021 information. So I kind of feel like we weren't given everything complete here. And a couple other things I just want to kind of go over here. You know, when I've talked to a couple of commissioners about this, you know, property, they're like, well, if we don't approve this, they're just going to build it right up on the road like Lake Norman Charter Elementary School did. Do we want that in that area? And so I went out and measured how far Lake Norman Charter Elementary School is from the side of the road. It's 75 feet. 75 feet from the edge of the road, and we're talking about making this 40. So it'd be half the distance. So I don't know if anybody else went out and measured it, but I thought I would because, well, why not do our due diligence? Also, if they were to put this 40 feet off the road with a parking lot stated here, you know, I don't see this as an improvement to the area. It doesn't mesh with the area, but also, you know, this is about needs and wants. And the applicant wants to put up pretty signs for a developer, or not a developer, but a business to come in. But I'll tell you, the business is going to be more concerned about if they can get their trucks, their 18-wheelers in the back, unloading docks, and how many parking spaces they got up top to get their people in and their customers to come see their facility. You know, I've been looking at facilities for going on 6 months now for my current company. And I'll tell you, I mean, you know, it's been more about access than where we can put a sign up so people can see. Because every one of these doors is going to have the address -A, B, C, or D, depending on who rents out and how much square footage they rent out. And it's going to be less about, you know, putting up their sign and more about what they can do inside the facility to pay the $550 to $750 a square foot rent that it's going to cost. I'm not a fan of granting the applicant as I wasn't prior. I think that, you know, we're talking about a facility that's 3/4 of a mile from Patterson Road. So it's not next to Patterson Road. It's not even 500 feet away. It's 3/4 of a mile from a road that the town did invest over $1 million in to get a company down there. And that road, I don't even believe connects to the current business park. I think it stubs out right past that company, or at least it did about a year ago when I drove it. And then, you know, we got to look around what's in the area. And we've got horse farms right across the street. We've got more rural housing out there, and due to the watershed issues, we're not going to see anything like this pop up across the street or further development down that way. So I am not in favor, as I wasn't on the 18th, the last time we heard this. And, you know, that's kind of where I'm standing.
Thank you for Commissioner Kidwell. Commissioner Kovacs, do you have any questions for staff?
With what Commissioner Kidwell mentioned, how Lake Norman Charter Elementary is, I think you said 75 feet off from the road, if this were to be built with the same setup, is that the minimum distance that it would have to be off the road is 75 feet?
So it would be similar. I would have to go back to look at where the school actually is, because I'm not exactly sure. I can look that information up.
It'd be similar.
It would be similar. That's correct. Because of future right-of-way and build to line from future right-of-way, it would be back there.
So if you look at this and you have a 40-foot buffer, and then what's the distance from the buffer to the building, that parking lot, do we know? Or is that are you able to figure that out?
I'm sorry, say that again. What was the question?
So as it sits right here on this screen, what would be the distance from the road to the actual building? I don't know if you can see better than me to.
Well, if you've got from the sidewalk, you got I believe it was about 60 feet, 20, 80, 100, 120. I'd say maybe 125 feet, give or take, in this position right here that we're looking at.
Okay. Yeah, I wasn't in favor of this on the 18th, and I am very much appreciative of the additional trees being added, and their willingness to do that, but I'm still not comfortable with the buffer, more so because it was 80 feet and it recently has been reduced to 40 feet, but we're still having to look at decreasing something that we recently just did. And I worry about setting a precedent where we don't follow our own ordinances that we recently modified. So that's just kind of where I'm at on this.
So Commissioner Munger, do you have any questions for staff?
Not really any questions, just a general comment. Obviously the first time through I voted against this, and when I did hear that it was coming back, I was concerned that it would be the exact same thing coming back, and I wouldn't understand that. But looking at this and seeing that the evergreens have been added, the opaqueness has been enhanced. For me, what it does is it indicates that we're working more in spirit with the actual ordinance and trying to make it so that we have a nice opaque buffer, and having the evergreens there that will block it out definitely makes it more appealing to me. And I think to Commissioner Boone's point, when we did pass the resolution or what have you to make Patterson Road more appealing, to enhance that area, to make it more inviting to light industrial, this is what we were trying to get. This is the type of businesses we're trying to get. I often have said, I hate the idea of Huntersville being referred to as a bedroom community. We are not a bedroom community. This is an area where we should be able to work, live, play, and eat. I want to be able to do all of those things in Huntersville. We should not be dependent upon, we just live here. We go to Charlotte and work and eat and do all of those things. Then we just come home and stay in our houses. We need to be able to be a thriving community with a wide variety of options for everything that anyone needs to be able to do. And I think this takes us closer to that point. So I will say that I am in favor of this new proposal. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Munger. Commissioner Partee, do you have any questions for staff?
No, I do not. I made the motion last month to approve this resolution, and I spoke to Commissioner Boone, and I'm in all agreement with this project.
Thank you, Commissioner Partee. Commissioner Phillips, do you have questions for staff?
I do not have questions, but I think it's important because my name is beside Dan's on this, that I was against it previously. However, I really do appreciate that the applicant took our concerns and actually materialized something with that. I am not used to seeing that out of people. And I thought that was very promising. I also want to note that we do like to brag on ourselves as somewhere you work, live, play, much to like what Commissioner Munger said. However, we need to be mindful of making sure that we're bringing jobs to our community. And while I have said no to a lot of things, I am honored to say yes to this. And I appreciate Commissioner Boone for leading the way on this and for getting the citizens more than they were offered. And I appreciate the applicant for being empathetic and for listening.
Thank you, Commissioner Phillips. All right, so is there a motion on this, Commissioner Boone? Yes.
Yes, Madam Mayor, I'd like to make a motion. In considering the proposed rezoning petition R21-10, North Chase at the Park, the town board recommends approval. The town board is aware of and considered the planning board's recommendation and all relevant portions of the 2040 community plan, including policy LU 1.1, 5.1, 7.1, 11.1, and 11.2. The town board finds modifications of the buffer requirements reasonable, considering the increase in architectural standards as modeled on the rendering as provided in the staff report. The submitted elevations are attached as conditions to the approval and are critical part of the rationale for granting the modification of the buffer requirements and approving the rezoning. The proposed building type prohibits employees and customers parking, provides employee customer parking in the front and requires rear load docks. The town board has considered the parking visibility in our discussion, and as a conditional of approval requires 100% screening of all automobiles on the street side by shrubs and trees with a minimum of 7 to 8 feet for tree height that mature in a period of 3 years. This will meet the intent of the cars not being visible from the street. It is reasonable and in the public interest to approve the rezoning so that we can find an adequate compromise between the save tree requirements, the aesthetics of the building, and the spirit of the ordinance regarding what should and should not be visible.
Thank you, Commissioner Boone. Do I have a second?
I'll second. Stacy.
That's Commissioner Phillips with a second. So now we must do the roll call vote.
Madam Mayor.
Yes,
Quick question.
absolutely.
Just, as I look through this, the packet that we received, I mean, we're still, just so Commissioner Boone is aware, the road improvements are still not set up. Like I said, the planting that was just presented to us was not presented to this board in this packet. There seems to be a lot of information missing from the packet for us to make a decision. I would encourage the board to vote against this. And as I told Commissioner Boone, and I'll tell all my fellow board members, I have no problem with anybody from this board ever bringing something back for discussion. And I think that's a great thing. It's a great part of our process. But we're bringing something back and about to potentially approve it that, let's be honest, warehousing, light industrial doesn't need a big old sign on the front. They just need to have a space, and we're missing a lot of improvements that staff has asked for in this packet. That the application, the developer has not presented. So thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. I do still have a motion on the floor, and I do have a second. Without any other discussion, give me a moment to flip real quick. Seeing no one else, I will do roll call vote. Commissioner Boone.
Yes.
Commissioner Kidwell. Oh, thank you.
Commissioner Kidwell is against.
Yes. Commissioner Kovacs,
No.
Commissioner Munger,
Yes.
Commissioner Partee,
Yes.
Commissioner Phillips.
Yes.
The vote passes 4-2. Thank you very much, Mr. Priest, for your time, and Mr. Semino and staff. We'll now move on to item 9B. This item is an interlocal agreement similar to the one we have with Mecklenburg County. I'm sorry? I heard something. I apologize. All right, I will move on. Let's see, this item is an interlocal agreement similar to the one we have with Mecklenburg County for the collection of taxes for Huntersville parcels in Cabarrus County. The town will compensate Cabarrus County a fixed rate of $2 for each town bill generated by the county. The recently approved R21-03 Skybrook Billings rezoning will add approximately 19 parcels to the town within Cabarrus County. Cabarrus County Commissioners will be voting on this interlocal this month. I will turn this over to Mr. Williams for a presentation and discussion.
I think you pretty much said it all. Here if there are any other questions, but it's pretty short and sweet. About 19 parcels this applies to, and they're looking to do the same thing this month.
Are there any questions for Mr. Williams?
I have a motion when appropriate.
Absolutely. I see no questions.
Okay. Motion to adopt an interlocal tax collection agreement between the town of Huntersville and Cabarrus County.
Second, Stacy.
I have a motion by Commissioner Munger. I have a second by Commissioner Phillips. And is there any discussion before we go to the vote? Seeing none, I will do the roll call vote. Commissioner Boone?
Yes.
Commissioner Kidwell?
Kidwell, affirmative.
Commissioner Kovacs?
Approve.
Commissioner Munger?
Yes.
Commissioner Partee?
Yes.
Commissioner Phillips?
Approve.
I see a 6-0 vote. Thank you, Mr. Williams. And we will now move on to the next item, 9C. You're not leaving us, Mr. Williams. This is a resolution not to bill or collect minimal taxes. I will leave that description to you.
All right, so this item, basically, if the bill is $5 or less, they're not going to send a tax bill. They're basically not going to send a bill for anything that costs more than the actual bill would pay. So pretty short and sweet. The resolution to this is referenced in the interlocal that you just approved. Happy to take any other questions.
All right, any questions for Mr. Williams? Commissioner Kidwell?
Yes, Mr. Williams, do we look at the net on that? Do we ever look at the net? So let's say there's, you got some that are negative or, $5 or $1 or whatever, and it adds up to, let's say, $50,000 total. Is that something they look at when they decide this?
I'm going to defer to Jackie on that. I believe it's just individual bills. And right now we're only talking about 19 parcels. So that will vary.
My understanding, yes, sir, is the individual bill. So no, if one taxpayer owes 1,000 bills, they don't accumulate them. No, it's on an individual parcel.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? All right, seeing none. All right, Commissioner Munger.
Motion to adopt a resolution not to bill or collect minimal taxes.
Second, Stacy.
All right, I have a motion from Commissioner Munger. I have a second from Commissioner Phillips. Is there any additional discussion? Seeing none, we'll do the roll call vote. Commissioner Boone?
Yes.
Commissioner Kidwell?
Affirmative. Kidwell.
Commissioner Kovacs?
Yes.
Commissioner Munger?
Yes.
Commissioner Partee?
Yes.
Commissioner Phillips?
Approve.
Thank you all. That is a 6-0 vote. Now we move on to item 9D. This is to declare surplus equipment. It's a request the board declare the existing 30, 40, 50 MVA transformer at the town's delivery numbers 3 substation as surplus and allow bids to be obtained to sell the transformer to the highest bidder. Who is here to, I see Mr. Mitchell. Mr. Mitchell, would you like to provide any additional background?
I think it's fairly explanatory. We are asking resolution R 2022-05 be approved so that the transformer at the delivery 3 substation can be declared surplus and sold to the highest bidder. Be glad to answer any questions that you might have about it.
Great. Are there any questions? Commissioner Kidwell.
Just a comment. This was on the consent agenda and moved up by the town manager, yet it meets the same definitions that we discussed earlier about consent agendas. So I'm seeing a double standard here.
Commissioner Kidwell, I'm happy to jump in there because I talked with Mr. Roberts about this particular item. I thought that there might be questions about the sale of this transformer and what were we going to be doing with a replacement, et cetera, to have more of a clear, well-rounded picture and understanding of why we were doing what we were doing. So in our conversation as we were walking through the agenda, I said, I think that somebody's might have a question around that transformer. I know I would.
With all due respect, Madam Mayor, that's one person making the decision for the board when the board should have been able to vote on the whole thing.
And the board was welcome to ask for it to be moved back to the consent agenda as well. But nobody brought that up. So I felt that somebody might have a question around it. Seeing that. Commissioner Munger.
I actually do have a question about it. Can you give us a little bit of history about this particular transformer? Why did we end up having this as a possible surplus? Because it sounds like if it's something that we're going to sell, ordered by mistake, was it the wrong size? Why do we have this that we're able to sell it and still make money off of it? I assume another one's coming in to replace it.
Yes, sir. Commissioner Munger, the transformer was purchased in 2017. Unfortunately, the engineer specified the wrong voltage on the transformer. So while it's in service right now, the voltage coming out of it is marginal. It's it's working, but it won't work long term. The engineer's errors and emissions insurance has purchased a new transformer for this substation. It's to be delivered this spring, and part of the agreement with the errors and emissions insurance is that the town would sell the existing transformer and give the proceeds from that sale to the insurance company.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Are there any other questions about this item? Seeing none. Yes, Commissioner Kovacs?
I was going to make a motion.
Oh, by all means.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the resolution to declare transformer at delivery number 3 substation surplus.
I'll second that.
I have a motion from Commissioner Kovacs. I have a second from Commissioner Boone. Is there any additional conversation around the transformer? Okay. We'll do roll call. Commissioner Boone.
Yes.
Commissioner Kidwell.
Kidwell, affirmative.
Commissioner Kovacs.
Yes.
Commissioner Munger.
Affirmative.
Commissioner Partee.
Yes.
Commissioner Phillips.
Approve.
All right, that would be a 6-0 vote. Thank you, Mr. Mitchell, for joining us this evening.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
All right, and now it looks like we move to the consent agenda.
Motion to approve the consent agenda.
Commissioner Phillips, do I have a second?
Second, Munger.
I have a Munger second. It's time for our roll call vote. Commissioner Boone,
Affirmative.
Commissioner Kidwell,
Negative.
Commissioner Kovacs,
No.
Commissioner Partee,
Yes.
and Commissioner Phillips.
Yes.
Can I say something too?
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to miss you, Commissioner Munger.
Approve.
Thank you. I apologize. So the consent agenda passes. And any closing comments? Commissioner Kidwell.
Yes, Madam Mayor, just don't really know what's going on. Hopefully, we never really took a real vote to attend these meetings virtually. Here we are in our second meeting, so I don't know when we're going to meet back in person. I know that many members of the board have had opportunities to go out, get some photo ops around town with a mask, without a mask. So I think that, we need to lead by example, and we either going to be back here in person at Town Hall at some point, or at least let's hold a vote on it. And also just looking forward to the 7th for these public hearings that we're going to have, so we can have more individuals from the town come and listen and ask questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Kidwell. Commissioner Boone?
Commissioner Kidwell, if you'd like to put that in a motion, I think that would be appropriate at this time. I think tonight is a perfect example where we had somebody from the public who wanted to speak and couldn't get through. That's just not acceptable tonight.
Unfortunately, we're in closing comments and not unable to make motions.
I will also say that we'll have some additional conversations around that, Commissioner Kidwell. I think that I have already asked town staff if they can get from the county our COVID numbers, so that we know that in our hometown that those numbers are going down from what we saw last time. I too hope that we can be in person as well. Commissioner Phillips?
We also have to, with this whole situation, have a conversation around if we go back to in person, does that end virtual for everybody, unless in the case of someone having COVID, because it is under the COVID extended emergency. So that's something we also have to discuss.
We can certainly do that as we move forward throughout the week. If there's no other closing comments, I do want to thank all of you for the lively conversation this evening. And I also would like to thank the community who has stuck around and who has hung in there with us through this night. And thank you for joining us. Thank you all for being part of making our community a better place. And with that,
Motion to adjourn.
Thank you very much. I was getting ready to ask that. You're all ready. I have a motion. I will take that from Commissioner Kovacs. I have a second from Commissioner Phillips. And I have to do one last roll call vote. And I promise not to forget you this time, Commissioner Munger. Commissioner Boone.
Yes.
Commissioner Kidwell.
Affirmative.
Commissioner Kovacs.
Yes.
Commissioner Munger.
Yes.
Commissioner Partee.
Yes.
And Commissioner Phillips.
Yes.
Thank you all. This meeting is now adjourned. Good night.